Hey, Alberta homeowners, you might be one of these people that I'm going to describe here has aluminum wiring in their house. And, you know, we know that this causes problems. And Ryan here from LumenTek Electrical in Red Deer is going to be telling us all about what you need to do and how to fix aluminum wiring in your home. So let's jump right into it. So aluminum wiring, why is it bad?
Aluminum wiring itself isn't bad if it's done correctly with modern connectors and proper wiring methods. The problem with when everyone hears aluminum wiring and they get worried, that's early 60s, mid 70s. If your house is built in that range, you probably have aluminum wiring. What the problem was is that copper got really expensive, so they just switched to aluminum and treated it the same way as copper. The aluminum alloy they used to use would corrode in just regular humidity. So all your connections, if you have a clean aluminum connection, you won't have any issues. But what would happen is as the moisture got to those connections, they would start corroding. The corrosion would create heat in the connections. And aluminum has a really low melting point, so it would just melt the connections. If there's anything flammable nearby, it would catch it on fire. And yeah, it's a bunch of bad stuff. They also had really bad panels back then for the most part. Like they had stab locks, commander panels, stuff like that just are known for not tripping. So if you had a bad connection, it would heat up, melt, short out. And if you had a good panel, it would trip and you would know to call someone. With the stab lock panels, it would just start humming and you probably go outside and see your meter spinning a mile a minute. Yeah, unless you happen to be there and notice that something was getting hot or you saw smoke coming out of somewhere, you wouldn't know. And yeah, your house would burn down.
So a lot of things. So they had the worst of all the world. So they had, aluminum wiring and at the devices they're overheating. And then you had a panel that would not trip or a breaker that wouldn't trip. Also bad. It's probably why we have GFCIs and arc fault breakers now. But, tell me a story on how things changed and what you guys can do to actually fix that problem.
So there's a few different ways to fix it. A lot of the insurance companies want to see that you've recently redone all the connections. So what we do is put connectors on that are rated for aluminum, as well as we use a antioxidant compound on there. So we put that on the wall. First of all, we take all the corrosion off. So we scrape it off or cut it back, strip it till we have new, clean, shiny aluminum. Put the paste on there because that basically seals the wire from any air touching it. That stops any corrosion. And then we reconnect it and then put the approved connector on. We also won't put aluminum wire on a plug or switch anymore. We have to go from the aluminum connection with copper. So we use a little pigtail, so it's a 6-inch piece of wire. Then we go to the switch with copper or the plug with copper. There are certain devices that are rated for aluminum, but for the most part, your standard plugs and switches aren't. Usually that's a dryer or an oven receptacle. You can use aluminum wire directly on it. So that's one thing. If you have aluminum wire, get someone in to check all the boxes, check all the connections, make sure they've been pigtailed with copper, use the proper connectors. Make sure they've got antioxidant paste in the panel where any time there's a wire terminating onto something where there's exposed aluminum, you want that covered with that special antioxidant paste to make sure you don't have any issues. The other thing is to change your panel out. A lot of the time they just, insurance companies just look for the 60 amp services. And they'll want changed to 100 amp. I'm not sure why specifically they want 60 amp services changed. It doesn't make a lot of sense to most electricians either because it doesn't really matter what the size is. If it's sized correctly, it should be fine. Usually it's just the old panels didn't trip. There are known to be issues with tripping with them. So I would recommend changing the panel out to a modern panel that they know will trip. They're less than 3% failure rate, I think. A lot of the stab locks were like 20, 30% of them wouldn't trip. I think the commanders were a little better, but still pretty bad. So yeah, change it to a newer panel that you know the breakers are good. They will trip if they need to trip. And take care of the connections, and realistically, you shouldn't have any issues.
Okay, so people in Alberta who have aluminum wiring, what is step number one? What do they got to do?
The bare minimum is call someone in to check all the devices, change out all the connections to the approved connectors, make sure there's no corrosion, no issues happening. That is the biggest thing by far, because now you've eliminated the source of the problem, the only issue you could potentially have is a panel that doesn't trip if there is another issue. So even if you have all of that taken care of, if you plug something in that's drawing too much power, that aluminum wire is only rated to carry a certain amount of current. If you're overloading it because you have a panel that won't trip, you're going to create issues again. It's less common, but it's still something to worry about. Mm-hmm. So that would be the second part of the getting rid of the issues with aluminum is changing your panel out to something modern. And that doesn't mean that every panel that came with a house that had aluminum wiring was bad. There's some Eaton panels in there. They're still sold today. They're still good panels. But if you have a stab lock or a commander, just be careful. That's the biggest thing. Usually by the time the plugs are worn out anyways, with the aluminum wiring, you want to change them anyhow. And that's the plugs are like, we basically just charge the plug for it because we're already doing all the connections. So that we have to take the plug out. So you might as well just put a new plug in. The labor's already paid for with the aluminum wiring.
Now let's talk about the panel real quick, because you had mentioned that at each device you have to, pigtail the wires, put a piece of copper on there to attach to the device. But I know, like, maybe you can explain to people what the code is about doing splices inside of a panel box or an electrical box, and what the actual process is for actually connecting those things to your breakers, the aluminum wire to your breakers.
So most breakers are rated for aluminum and copper. So you can use either one in there. It doesn't matter. Unless the breaker specifically says copper only or doesn't have aluminum listed as a proper, if the breaker's doesn't list aluminum as a approved material for a wire, then you can't use those breakers. Almost every breaker is rated for both. So what we normally would do is go in there, pull all the connections out, check the conditions of them, make sure the breakers aren't melted or anything like that. Just cut off a few inches of the wire, restrip it, put the antioxidant compound on there and reconnect it. Check all your neutrals, check all your grounds, make sure that's all done right. Pull the main cover off, make sure those connections are done right. There's no signs of heat or anything like that. The bus bar will also check too, just visually, to make sure there's no signs of heat. When you heat metal up too much, you'll usually get just discoloring on it. So you can see if it's been heated up a lot in the past, and then it's usually highly recommended you change the panel if you see any signs of that or any signs of corrosion. If it's an overhead service, if it's not sealed properly at the top, if the weather head falls off or whatever during a storm, you'll get water down there and corrosion in the panel, and that's usually a pretty good reason to change a panel out. Because if you can see the corrosion on the bus bar, the chances are that breakers have corrosion. If they're already known to be a problem, you've already amplified that problem by having corrosion on all the connections.
That's
in the panel.
That's the gist of it with the panel. Okay, is there anything else that people should know about if they have aluminum wiring in their home for all their branch circuits and whatnot? What should they do?
Definitely call someone, and call an electrician. Don't call a handyman. We actually just recently did one. They called a handyman. So he redid all the connections, changed a lot of the plugs out and stuff, but he didn't use the right connectors. So they're not even rated for aluminum. And then what happened was the homeowner had to get a letter by a contractor for the insurance company. And we were like, yeah, we'll pull a couple out, take a look. I'm like, these aren't done right. Like, you got to redo them. She's like, I just paid someone to do them. I was like, well, they weren't an electrician. They didn't do it right. And I hope they weren't an electrician at least. So we had to go in and redo it all. And then we found a bunch that had been missed. We found a bunch of other issues like open splices with no junction boxes. The house had no hardwired smoke detectors too, because back in the 60s and 70s, you didn't need smoke detectors. So we recommended they added those as well, because you're dealing with something that's already a fire hazard. You want to have at least everything you can do to prevent a fire, or at least catch it early and stop it. So we redid all the connections in there, changed the plugs out, ensure they're all done properly.
Awesome. So there you have it, folks. Aluminum wiring is no joke. And what I would suggest is call Ryan from LumenTek. He can come out there, or someone from his team can come out, assess the situation, and give you a fair price on what it would be to fix things up and make sure that it's safe. Because nobody wants to have a fire in their house, because it usually happens in the middle of the night when you're not suspecting it. And also, when you are plugging in your space heaters, that's a perfect opportunity for aluminum to go sideways and catch a fire. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this video. Ryan, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thanks.
And we'll see you guys on the next video.